All right, let's talk about reflections. I'm going to go to Desmos, so I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a sec here. Okay, so let's pick a basic function, y equals x squared. And there are two ways that you can put, well, there's two places you can put a negative, on the inside of the function or on the outside of the function. So if I put it on the outside, that is going to affect the function vertically. So remember, when you multiply by either a constant, and it may be positive or negative, on the outside of the function, that is going to stretch, or if it's a negative, it's going to reflect it vertically. Inside, transformations affect things horizontally. So the negative now is on the outside. So you can see what it did to my graph. It reflected across the x-axis. Everything that was up here was on the y values were positive. Now the y values are negative. So everything gets flipped across the x-axis. If, however, I put my negative on the inside of the function, so in this case, if I put parentheses around this negative and put the square on those parentheses, the negative is on the inside. You'll notice that nothing changes. And that is because when you reflect it, you're reflecting across the y-axis. And since this is a even function, in other words, both sides are mirror images of each other, when you reflect it, you're just going to get the same function. And that makes sense because if you square a negative, it's positive. So whether x is positive or negative doesn't really matter when you're squaring it. So this is not such an interesting example, but let me show you a function. Let's do the square root function. Let's see. So we have the square root of x. Okay, so here you see our square root of x function. Now watch what happens when I put the negative on the outside. We expect it to reflect across the x-axis. So y equals negative square root of x. Okay, so you can see that everything, all the y values that were positive are now negative, and so it gets reflected across the x-axis. Well, what if I put that negative on the inside? So I'm going to do square root of negative x. Now our graph is reflected across the y-axis. So this is square root of x. This is minus square root of x. And this is square root of minus x. And having that negative on the inside is affecting the x values. So therefore, what was positive x is now going to become negative x under the radical. And so you're going to flip across the y-axis. So just remember, on the outside, it's going to reflect across the x-axis. On the inside, it's going to reflect across the y-axis when you're multiplying by a negative.